and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
All right.
Yeah, Matt's been ill.
I'm in the process of recovering, but I'm mostly good now.
But it's the last week of Halloween, and we had to get another Halloween movie in. So,
Yeah,
Matt,
I tried to do 3 a year, but I think it's going to just be the 2 this year.
well, it's not like we don't do Halloween. It's not like we don't do horror movies in other months anyway. So we could continue.
That is true.
Christmas is soon. We need to start thinking about Christmas. But
I've got one that we're doing for Christmas already.
Cool. Do I know about that?
I haven't discussed it with you yet.
Okay, cool. I mean, I might know. That's a genuine question because my memory is that bad these days. I'm like, did we? You might have told me. I don't know.
I mean, there doesn't have to be a secret or anything. I just thought, well, you know what, we always do Christmas movies, and
we do.
Strictly speaking, it's a movie set at Christmas.
Die Hard 2.
No.
Lethal Weapon.
We've done Die Hard. We've done Lethal Weapon.
Die Hard 2. Okay.
No, I didn't think of that. No.
We've done The Empire Strikes Back. That's got snow. Batman Returns.
There you go.
Hey, I think we did discuss it actually.
Yeah.
I think we did. I think we discussed it, and I promptly forgot. As is my my want.
We did that a while ago, so I thought, hey, why not?
I love Batman
my opinion,
Returns.
it's the better movie, but
I think it's yeah, probably. It's been a while. I need to watch both of them again. I think I could go either way. Because Jack Nicholson is so wonderful in that first film.
Yeah.
But then that sequel is so good. Yeah. Well, we'll get into that in a couple of weeks, I guess, because Christmas is like 8 weeks away now or something ridiculous. So, but today, of course, we are talking about Society from 1989, directed by Brian Yuzna. Yuzna? Bride of Reanimator and Return of the Living Dead 3 and such.
Did you notice the oddity in his movie list?
I haven't, no. What?
So, I'll give you the general sort of
okay.
mix of what you usually see: the Guyver,
Society, yeah, you can see the Guyver, yeah.
Dolls,
yeah, Dolls.
Reanimator, the Dentist,
sure,
Crying Freeman.
Okay.
And then amongst that,
oh yeah, because there are some really weird shots in the Crying Freeman movie.
Yeah,
and you're like, now it makes more sense when you're like, oh yeah, it's that director, okay. Because some of the shots are like, it's kind of played almost like a straight action assassin movie, but there are the odd things in there where you're like, that was weird, and yeah, it makes sense. So yeah, go on.
So most of these are producing. He didn't direct them a lot, but they're on his list. The one that stands out is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
What, producer?
Yep.
Oh.
And story. He wrote it as well.
Oh wow. I haven't watched Honey, I Shrunk the Kids since I was a kid.
No,
but I remember enjoying it.
I must have watched that with my sister, I reckon.
Yeah,
that came out the same year as Society.
Yeah, do you know, it's funny you should say that, because rewatching this film, I was getting the details for it, and I was like, is this definitely 1989? Because this feels like 1984 or something, you know? Like, it feels like it should be earlier 80s than this film actually is, but yeah, 1989.
The thing that I noticed the most, actually, this time round was, especially with the music, because sometimes the music goes fucking batshit, and you're like,
yeah,
this is a bit much.
But
it very much reminded me of 90s Cronenberg.
Yes, yes.
90s Lynch. Sorry. 90s
yeah,
Lynch.
I can see that.
It's especially the use of music. It's very weird and sort of,
especially the title music.
Yeah.
It kind of comes out of nowhere. It certainly sets the scene for the movie.
It's the boat song, isn't it? It's the Eton boat song, which weirdly, I'm pretty sure the week I watched this movie, I'd already watched some sort of Eton drama movie or series, and they had this song in it.
Oh.
So I'd heard the song like the same week in another thing, which was really weird. I never remember what it came from, but it was literally a high society movie, as it were.
Yes. When did you first see Society?
When it came out on video.
Okay, so I'm going to say the same. I have a weird memory that I saw part of this movie.
Yeah.
The end part. He's part of the end part.
Yeah,
maybe like a year before, and was like, what the fuck is that? And then like a year or so later, renting it with a friend, I was like, oh, it's this. Okay, it's this movie.
I remember seeing the it was the advertisement for it was on the back of it. I've got a feeling it was, if it wasn't a 2000 AD, it might have been a Metal Hammer or something.
It feels like something you'd see on Metal Hammer or 2000 AD. I could buy either.
I remember seeing the poster of the woman in the blue dress peeling her face off, sort of thing. That poster in particular.
Yeah.
There's so many posters for this bloody movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing that poster and thinking, that is a really good image. I think I need to see this movie. And then at the time, we sort of, Screaming Mad George is sort of making a name for himself. And weirdly, back then, we didn't know who Screaming Mad George was one of those sort of people that no one seemed to know who he was.
Yeah.
Just sort of, because we didn't have the internet. You couldn't just look someone up back then. It was like, who is this person?
It was a more fun time for that reason, in my opinion.
And there were sort of weird rumours, you'd sort of hear people say, "Oh, I think it's a woman. I don't think it's a man at all. I think it's."
Yeah.
And then it's, "Oh no, it's a team of people. There's no Screaming Mad George and all this sort of stuff." And, yeah, he's a Japanese dude. He called himself that because he got Screaming Jay Hawkins and stuff like that. He became fascinated with the idea of having that as his name.
Right.
His real name is Joji Tani.
That's a cooler name.
Yeah,
you should have just gone with that. I mean,
he was in he had a punk band called The Mad.
Okay,
which is pretty good actually. They're not bad.
He really doubled down on the Mad stuff.
Yeah. He's, he made their videos and stuff. So if you see the video.
I mean, I must admit, it does. It does stand out.
Yeah.
You're watching the title sequence, and you're like, Screaming Mad George, like, what the fuck? So yeah, it stands out. I guess it accomplishes the goal. Yeah. In any case, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's do
it. We open kind of almost. You get the production stuff, and then it's like almost a cold open, where we're seeing Bill having like a waking dream or a dream. It's kind of unclear.
The titles go over basically the end scene, don't they?
Yeah. It kind of, like, you get like the production logo bits. It goes into this, and then it starts the title credits. Like, at that point. But we see Bill basically stalking around his parents' house in his like nightwear, I guess.
Yeah. And he's like the sweatiest human being wandering around.
Can I say there are very few. Like, mullets are one of those things that everyone makes fun of, but when it's good, when someone pulls it off, I think he pulls it off, man. I was there a few scenes, and not when he's sweaty like this, but later, I was like, yeah, he's rocking that mullet, like that works.
I thought he was giving off weirdly Michael J. Fox vibes.
Yeah. Oh god, his facial expressions, 100%.
Yeah,
I got exactly the same.
It that you must be about the same size as Michael J. Fox as well. You look just as short and sort of,
Yeah, if Canon were going to rip off Back to the Future,
yeah,
totally
should have
get Billy Warlock. So eventually he finds a knife in the kitchen, and he stalks around the house with this big old kitchen knife. And as always, these 80s kids that are hard done by or treated badly by their parents, they always live in fucking mansions. Like, they always have such good their living conditions are always amazing.
Yeah. Well, the difference is, in this one, they're supposed to be rich. So
no, this one it makes perfect sense.
It's the ones that always got me. I mean, I know we're English. We live. English people don't have the same sort of house.
It's true, but it's films like Lost Boys and stuff like that. They've always got these amazing bedrooms with every toy and cool thing you could ever want, and they're like, "Oh, my life sucks."
I'm such a loser. I've got
nothing. And I'm like, as a kid, I would have died for any of this stuff.
Your bedroom's like twice the size of my entire house.
Yes. Yeah.
It's things like the ones that used to get me as well were especially in the 90s, when you get stuff like Scream. Everyone in Scream, like, they're supposed to be. My guess is they're supposed to be like middle class.
Yeah.
Low middle class, but they all have the most fucking huge houses with these like views that go on for fucking miles.
Yeah. So eventually we kind of hear some creepy laughter, and then it cuts, and I'm not sure whether he was having if he's talking about his dream to his psychiatrist or his counselor, or whether he was having a waking dream while sat there, because the counselor's kind of like, "Are you there? Like, what's going on?"
It could well be, but he's certainly telling his incredibly creepy psychiatrist
about his mum finding him while he was holding a knife on the floor, and the counselor says, it was a nightmare. I think Bill says it was a nightmare. He's like, well, last night? He's like, my life is a nightmare. It's like, no, my whole life. He's talking about his parents and his sister. Even at this stage, like, he doesn't feel like he's part of this family. He doesn't feel like it's quite right, which presumably is why he's seeing a counselor. I know seeing counselors in the US is a bit different than over here. You over here, you tend to do that when you have something wrong or diagnosed, unless you're paying privately. But I gather in the States, it's a bit more common.
It might be different these days, but in the 90s, nobody I knew ever went to a shrink.
No, but certainly the perception that I get from Hollywood movies and TV is that everyone has counselors over there, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, during this conversation, he bites into an apple, and it's full of maggots.
Not just full. It's like
it's like the whole thing was
It's like mostly maggot.
Mostly maggot, yes. As the psychiatrist or counselor continues to try and kind of calm him. We get a close up. It kind of zooms in on the maggoty core of the apple, and then we cut to the opening credits, which is full of sex orgies with people and or weird bits of body and creature.
Yeah. I actually thought that was a bad idea, having that so early.
It does kind of give too much away. If I had one argument, I would say it gives too much away. I do like the contrast between the song and the imagery, right?
Yeah.
But you're right, it gives too much away. Like, it always annoyed me in The Thing and Predator when they show the bloody spaceship. I'm like, why did you show the spaceship land? I know the movie would be ruined anyway, and like, there's no way you make a trailer without showing everything anyway. But back in the day, like this movie, you'd come across these things on TV and you'd have no idea.
We're talking about covers for the thing.
Yeah.
The original, I think it was the original Criterion cover for it, is the butthead shot.
It's the money shot.
Like, why would you want that as your cover for the movie? That's just tells everybody everything.
Yeah, it's like the Planet of the Apes when they have the fucking Statue of Liberty. It's like, what are you doing? I mean, I know the movie's old, but Jesus. But yeah, anyway, we cut presumably to later that day or the next day. Bill's playing basketball with his friend, and he notices a van pull up, a sinister van. His friend makes some really awkward joke about, you'll probably end up assassinating the president or something.
Yes. I thought, damn.
I know. Guys, this was unintentional. Neither of us have watched this film for a long time. I'd completely forgotten about this line. This has nothing to do with your elections next week, America. But yeah, so he notices the van and he recognizes it as Blanchard's van. So he shouts up to his sister and he says, "Hey, sister, Blanchard's here." And she's like, "I can't see him right now. Can you just deal with him?" So of course Bill says, "Hey, what are brothers for?" So he sets off kind of looking for Blanchard. Meanwhile, his sister is getting ready for, it looks like she's getting ready for a prom or something, or like a big event, the way she's dressed.
It's her...
Or is it her dress for the event?
It's her dress for the coming out party.
Okay, so she's just trying on the outfit,
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, given what that fucking party is, I wouldn't have given a shit what I was wearing, to be honest. I would have wore the cheapest thing possible.
You've got to look nice to turn up, haven't you? And go away.
I'd look nice if I was her, because it's a really lovely dress. I would turn up and be like, "This is my lovely dress." Now, when you tell me before the orgy starts, and I'm going to put this away and come down in a bin bag or something.
Away from the slime and the...
Yeah. Anyway, while getting ready, she goes to get her earrings. She realizes she's missing one. She can't find it, so she starts looking around. She finds it on the floor, and she looks up, and we get this kind of shot of Blanchard's eyes peering out from under her clothes.
You get this sort of build up to the, oh, there's someone in the room with her.
Yeah, because you do see the clothes kind of flutter, don't they, in one shot? Yeah. And you get the sinister kind of stalkery music.
Yep.
But yeah, so Bill comes in, grabs Blanchard, and basically is like, "Get the fuck out of my house! You're like literally in my sister's room, perving on her. What are you doing?" And then one of those things that when you first watch this movie, you're like, "What the fuck?" But it all makes sense later. You know, the parents turn up and they seem so uninterested, or they don't care that Blanchard was literally stalking their daughter in her room while she was getting undressed. Like, the mother comes in and goes, "Oh, what are you doing here? I thought you weren't coming here anymore." You know, like, they really don't care. It's not like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing to my daughter?"
Well, it's just the same. It's the same sort of disdain you would have for a servant or something, isn't it? It's that sort of...
It is, but like, if a servant violated or tried to violate someone's daughter, you would have thought they would react a bit more angrily. They're so passive about it. They just don't care, you know? Which is a tip to you know, later events.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the father does say, you know, "I thought you weren't going to be seeing Blanchard anymore." And they kind of discuss the fact that he's just kind of not giving up, basically. It's over, but it's not, you know, he's not going to give up. Blanchard did say as he was being taken down the stairs that he had something to explain to Bill, but obviously Bill's understandably furious and is having none of that and is like, "No, get out." And yeah, so the parents, I don't know where they've been, some function, I guess, and they come home, go upstairs, leaving Bill and his sister. They have a kind of nice moment talking about the coming out party and whatnot, and then she asks him to do up her dress.
Yeah.
And as he does that, I mean again, the way he reacts is like, oh, he saw something a bit weird. What we see is her whole back kind of bulges out. If I saw that, I would have been like, "Oh my god, get to hospital! What is going on?" But he's just like, "Ah, it's fine, whatever." He's like, "Oh, I thought I saw something. Your back's wet or whatever."
I think at this point, he thinks he's so he thinks he's just seeing things.
Yeah, maybe he thinks it's just a hallucination on his part. That's a fair point.
Because he does mention how sweaty she is, and she says, "Well, I'm not having another shower yet.
Yeah,
I'll just got out," sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, sweaty is not the word I would use. Do you know what I mean? Not for my sister or my partner or anyone. I'd just be like, "Oh, I think you're still wet from the shower," is what I would have said. I would have said you're sweaty.
It looks a little more jelly-like than
it does,
sweat,
yes.
But sure.
Well, I would have been tactful, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Anyway, we then cut to the school gym, where I think it must be like, is it like student?
It's debate
president or whatever, I guess. Are they running for student president? I think
so. It seems to be the debate for student president.
Yeah. And basically Bill is kind of seemingly winning just because he's a popular jock. He's a good-looking guy, and he's going up against Nerd Man.
Yeah.
But of course, Nerd Man, I forget his name. He does have a name in the film. He has a plan. And as Bill's friend, and that's also a bit suspect because Bill's best friend is the guy presiding over this as well. It all feels very biased.
Yeah. I
And his girlfriend is the cheerleader who's doing the dance at the start as well. It all feels very dodgy.
Yeah.
It all feels very very
adds to the whole sort of weird incestuous relationshipy stuff, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely it does. So he's asked by his best friend, who's like, as I said, is kind of governing this or overseeing this debate about the dress code. And Nerd Man looks at a girl in the front row, gives her a look, and she immediately begins flirting. As he's trying to talk about the dress code, she basically opens up her legs and starts kind of looking at him. He is completely obsessed with her immediately. It's like the first time he's ever seen her in his life, and he's just already completely obsessed with her. Yeah. Meanwhile, his girlfriend is looking on furiously, to the point that doesn't she like smash her books on her lap or something to get to break him out of his like trance?
I think so, yeah.
And then I always thought it's really telling that Bill doesn't go, "Oh, hey, parents, family, look what I did." He goes to his counselor. It's like, "Hey, counselor, I did it. I aced it. I'm going to become student president probably." He's giving the good news to his counselor, not to his family.
Yep.
He kind of says like, "Oh, he doesn't really think about things with his family." And he makes some really awkward comment about incest.
Yeah.
Doesn't he say, "Oh yeah, we're like one big happy family apart from the incest" or something?
Yeah.
Which the counselor even, I think the counselor's like, "Oh, I know you're joking." And he says, like, "Hey, is it at this point that he says like, I don't think I'm part of this family. I think I'm adopted," basically.
Yeah. Yeah. He keeps bringing up these feelings that because he says, "Oh, I don't even look like them."
Yeah.
They'll be clearly not. They're all like these like tall and almost blonde people, as it were. And
yeah.
This short, dark-haired dude.
And he says like they don't show any interest in me, Jenny, who I'm dating. They don't show any interest in anything I do. They're so passive about everything in my life.
I mean, theoretically, this could all just be teen,
Oh, well, that's the great thing about the movie, right? It's one of the things I think the movie does really well. And in many ways, like I said, it's almost a shame that the movie does tip its hat a bit too soon.
It does.
Because I would have liked it to go on a little longer with maybe he's just imagining things, being a teenager and taking things out of whack.
Yeah.
You can at this stage you can still put this down to him seeing things or whatever.
Yeah.
But it becomes clear very soon that it's not the case.
Yeah. And I think we've had at one point already where he's talking to his parents. I think they're like trying to go upstairs or something. And
yeah, it's when they come in the house.
I think his mum says, "Oh, you're going to make a wonderful contribution to society."
Yeah.
And I think that's the first time you hear that, and I think he gets told that about 3 or 4 times throughout the movie.
And that's not something a parent says to their son.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's awkward and weird.
I think it is for rich people.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Well, yes, I wouldn't know about that. So maybe, you may be right. Maybe that is how people talk to each other. I love the bit where the psychiatrist is like, I think this is paranoia. And Bill's just like, "I have never been paranoid in my life." It's like, okay, buddy, you are seeing a psychiatrist right now, though.
Yeah. Like, who are you telling right now?
Yeah. So Bill decides he's going to fuck off to the beach. But first he needs his suntan lotion, which is in the bathroom. His sister's in the bathroom. He goes upstairs, knocks on the door. No answer. She's showering in the bathroom. He goes in, and it's an interesting transition because this ends up weird where like her torso's on backwards or at least her breasts are on her back and her head is on backwards. It's a really cool like weird shot. Mm-hmm. But this definitely sets up before that with him just perving on his sister for a minute.
Yeah.
Like before it becomes weird, it's clearly just his sister having a shower. So yeah. a little awkward and weird. Particularly given the comments previously about incest. But yeah, so we get that really cool morph where it looks like she's kind of on backwards, which we get another shot of that kind of thing as the film goes on. But it's a really effective shot, I think. Like,
it's through frosted glass, so you can only make out really shapes, and
you can tell that it's kind of jank.
Yeah.
But the frosted glass, it makes it okay. It makes it all right. Anyway, he ends up opening the shower, and she screams and is like, "What the fuck are you doing? Get out!" She's perfectly normal, and again, we're putting it down to Bill's psychosis or visions or whatever. And he says like, "Oh, sorry, I just came to get this suntan lotion," and it's like, dude, you opened her shower. The suntan lotion was on the shelf back there.
I mean, it's always been one of those weird things that you hear some family, like, there seems to be like two sort of things. It's like some families are completely comfortable with their own nakedness and stuff, and wandering around, and then there is my family who would like, you don't go anywhere near your parents or your brother and sister when
Yes. That's exactly the same, and maybe that's more of an English thing. I don't know.
Maybe it is.
But yeah, like you wouldn't
going anywhere. Like if my sister's in the bathroom,
you don't go in the bathroom.
I'm not going anywhere near that bathroom.
No. How fucking desperate are you for suntan lotion? Like, how long is this shower likely to take? I mean, I know showers can go on a while, but we're not talking hours.
7-Eleven, buy some at the fucking, or buy some at the fucking.
Yeah, just buy some more. Yeah, just buy some more. But anyway, I guess we're chalking that up at this stage to Bill's hallucinations.
Yeah.
So he goes outside, and potentially, I don't know whether it's another hallucination or just weird American families, but they're outside with their gardener, his parents, looking at slugs, and he's picking it up with chopsticks.
Yeah.
They're just like, "Oh, this is a good slug." Like, okay, I guess.
Well, they have this sort of weird conversation, and as he's leaving, I think the mother says, "Oh, we've raised a really good crop this year."
Yes.
So they,
and they are specifically talking about the slugs, not the roses
plants.
or the plants. Yeah.
There's something really cool about the slugs and the worms and stuff.
Yeah.
So, Screaming Mad George, who made these amazingly grotesque creations, wouldn't go anywhere near the slugs and snails and stuff.
It really was that his thing.
Could barely be in the room with them.
And yet, this is one of the slimiest movies ever made.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
It's funny what makes people tick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Bill heads to his Jeep, and he goes to sit down and sits on it looks like a G.I. Joe or a Ken doll with a screw screwed into its head.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really think anything of it. He just kind of throws it to one side and drives off to the beach. And it's kind of made clear from the placard that this is like a private beach club, basically.
Yeah.
So, as you said, they're well to do, for sure. Bill starts. Bill is there with his girlfriend, the most annoying woman in the world.
God, she is.
She's so annoying. There's a bit in a minute when she's like, maybe we should see other people, and I was like, if that was me, I would have been like, yep, 100%, please.
Off you go, love.
I've made a terrible mistake. But anyway, he's clearly in love with her anyway.
Well, the thing what I love is that she says, "Oh, you know I love you, don't you?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Now go and get me an invite to the fucking party."
Oh my god, yeah. She's like, if you really loved me, you would go and get me invited to Ted Ferguson's party. While they're doing this though, some kids are doing like the worst sneaking around the back.
Yeah.
I can only assume because she clearly sees them. I guess she just assumed they were just kids fucking around.
She's completely oblivious. Maybe it's rich people goggles. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. But they sure see them now.
One of those kids is Brian Yuzna's kid.
Oh, okay. So, we get two of these in a row. the fucking suntan lotion to the face. very suggestive shots. They do it twice.
Yep.
But fine. They do it to these kids squirt it all over them. It's primarily over her, which covers her. Yeah. He then kind of, for her honor, runs after the kids, or maybe not for her honor, maybe just to get the suntan lotion back.
I think it's to get the suntan lotion back.
He grabs it off of them, tackles them to the floor. They get away. And then when he looks up,
her hair.
Sorry.
She screams about her hair.
She screams about her hair, yes. Which is fine in the next shot, by the way. Totally fine. And he looks up and he sees the girl. I'm sure is it the same girl that was at the...
It's the one that was in the...
Yeah, it was, right.
What is her name?
I forget her
Larissa.
name. Yes. Yeah, it's her, and she squirts it in his face. He's clearly besotted with her.
Yeah.
Very clearly. And then he turns back. And yeah, I think that's when you get the girlfriend complaining about her hair and looking very, very angry about what's going on. Because she knows. Well, she knows from the debate, right? It was pretty clear. So he looks back to go to try and get invited to the party, and immediately walks into her mum.
Yeah.
Who I've never quite figured out in this movie.
We don't know it's her mother at this point. It's just.
Well, yeah. Sorry, we know later. Sorry, yes, you're right.
Yeah, it's just some. At this point, it's just a random huge lady.
Yeah. Who is silent and
doesn't
odd.
Look like she's all there.
No,
she's not quite the ticket.
But anyway, Bill walks around her and heads off to meet the other guys, the popular guys. They kind of make jokes about suntan lotion being part of the dress code and stuff. It's like, well, it's not that big of a deal.
They sort of, I do like the way they all see him coming and they're all like giggling to each other.
Yeah.
And he's like saying, "Hey, is there anything going on this weekend?" It's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's so cringy. It's like, oh, dude.
Like it would be so less cringy if you just go up and say, "Hey, do you mind if me and my girlfriend come to your party?"
Yeah.
That would be like way less awkward.
It would. I mean, if he shoots you down, you could just have
yeah, if he's going to be an asshole, he's going to be an asshole either way. Yeah. Like, he knows what you're going to ask him.
More dignity in your walk away than fucking, oh.
I mean, honestly, if it was me, I would have just lied and said that I asked.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, to say that is a no, sorry. Yeah. This is why I'm single.
I just wouldn't have done it.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's rejected. They talk about the election and potentially rigging the election and whatnot, and they've got a natural born leader who should be student president. So rejected. He notices his girlfriend's gone, right? Because he looks back and she's just not there anymore.
There's an empty towel.
So he goes off to find her. But then, of course, the kid comes back. What's his name? I've already forgotten his name now. God damn it. Stalker Boy.
Oh, yeah.
What is his bloody name? I literally was saying it.
Blanchard,
yes. He turns up and he's like, "I need to speak to you. I have something I need to show you." And he's kind of clearly not too happy about it, but he does agree. Or he does follow him anyway.
Yep.
Meanwhile, we have a meeting going on between the father and I think it must be the mayor, or it's either the mayor or the judge. That's right, it's the judge, who is pervy as all hell over his daughter.
Yep.
Given that, I'm assuming because American movies, they always get actresses and actors that are way older than the age they're playing.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming she's barely legal if she is legal, and this judge, I mean, obviously later we will discover, but for right now it is like, whoa, this guy.
Or even worse than that, the father is almost pimping her out.
Oh yeah, he's like, she's the most beautiful girl you'll ever see, and whatnot.
Does he even say at this point? Me and my wife get a lot of pleasure out of her, or something.
Something,
like
yeah. There is a line like that. I don't know if it's here, but yeah, creepy. Anyway, she has an issue. Her earring. Remember the earring that went missing earlier? Well, now it's got something stuck in it. So the father starts to have a look.
It's got a boom mic in it, basically.
Yeah, it's quite clearly a microphone. But back on the beach, Blanchard pulls out this whole spy kit, and Bill's like, "What is this? Like Mission Impossible?"
I do love the spike, the whole like, "Hey, look at my gear."
Well, yeah, and then he's like, he makes fun of him for like having spy tech. But then he's like, "Hey, I don't want you to be mad, but I have been bugging your entire family." He's like, "What did you expect was going to happen?"
You don't be mad. I've just been putting listening devices all over your house. It's fine.
But before Bill can punch his lights out, he press play on the dictaphone, and we hear this conversation between his sister and his parents. They're talking about getting ready for the party, and then how Bill apologized for not being able to make it tonight, but it was a good thing that he couldn't make it. And then he does that thing that they do in all movies where they just haphazardly press fast forward for a bit and it goes to the perfect point that he wants to go to. Like there's no accident. It's like precise.
No one ever comes in halfway through, do they? Or like halfway through a thing that doesn't make sense. I think I've seen one movie where they've like had to finicky it a bit, which was like nice to see, but almost always it's perfect spot. There you go.
And the fast forwarded bit, it sounds at first like girls talking about having sex, but they start saying weird things like, "See how far you can stretch."
Yeah.
And then we start hearing like a guy screaming, it's all kind of fucked up.
There's all sorts of little things like, "Hey, you mean I can do it with girls as well as boys and stuff like that?" Mm-hmm. You're like, "Yes, you can do it with everyone," sort of thing. It's like, okay.
We cut back to the father and the judge, and I love that the father almost seems proud in a weird way that he's been bugged by Blanchard. There's something about it. He's like, well, I kind of respect the attempt,
I think it's that sort of like, oh my god, look, the monkeys can talk. It's that sort of,
look what my pet did.
Yeah.
Bill and Blanchard, obviously finished the tape off, and Bill takes it out on Blanchard, who's just like, dude, it's just recorded, because Bill's like, oh, you rigged it. But he basically takes the tape, doesn't he? He steals the tape, gives him the dictaphone, and runs off. Straight to his counselor, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So he heads to his doctor, whatever he is, and asks him to look at the tape, and he's like, dude, I'm busy. Like, I have a life. You can't just burst in whenever you want with your issues. But he says, no, you need to listen to it now. And he's like, I can't listen to it now. He's like, give me the tape and I'll listen to it later. And he's like, no. And the doctor says, like, hey, what? So do you still not trust me? Like, because the inference is that he has clearly trust issues with everyone pretty much at this stage of his life. But he says, like, he doesn't know why he doesn't trust him, but he's afraid. And eventually he does trust his doctor. He gives it to him and he says, look, this is really important. And the doctor says, look, I understand. Come back tomorrow and we'll go through it. So the doctor has the tape.
Yep.
I think we then go to school the next day, and Bill is talking to his girlfriend, and he's like, "Hey, so after you stormed off yesterday, this funny thing happened. I listened to this tape, and there was these weird things about my family on it." And she's just like, "Are we going to the party or not?"
Yeah, I don't care.
She's like, "But what about the party and my social status?" And he's like, "Is that all you care about?" And she's like, "Clearly, yes."
Yes. It's like, duh.
Yeah. He's like, "I'm trying to tell you something really important." And
have you been paying attention?
Yeah. Well, she gets really angry because he says, "Look, I'm trying to tell you something really important about my family, and you're talking about this fucking party, this shit party." And she's like, "Well, if you're not going to take it seriously, maybe we should see other people." And like I said, I would have been like, "Cool," yep. but she doesn't. He runs after her. Shauna, that's her name. Shauna.
Doesn't he find is this where he finds the
head?
Shrunken head in his locker.
Yeah, which is like clearly like a doll head because he grabs it and it squeezes.
Yeah,
like a shrunken head presumably wouldn't do that.
Oh, we would have thought
so. But his best friend is there at that point, so which will come in later.
Yeah.
He goes back to his doctor, and the doctor says, like, "Hey, Bill, do you realize how illegal it is to record people without their knowledge?" And Bill's like, "Well, I didn't do it technically, but also, it's listen to it, please." So the doctor does, and it's a very different message. It's just a message of his. It's a very different recording. It's his parents and his daughter talking about going for a drive or something, I think.
Yeah, and they're sort of like, "Oh, it's a real."
They're talking to their grandmother and stuff, and it's all really wholesome, right?
And yeah, it's all nicey, and they're just talking about the party as if it's a normal party. And
yeah.
There are no reference to dodgy shit and
no
screams.
No screams of agony. No sex noises. No talk of how long you can make yourself. And he's like, "Look, that is not what I heard." And of course, again, the suggestion is that Bill is losing his mind.
Yep.
And the doctor says to him, he's like, "Look, Bill, people are what they are. Like you've just got to learn to accept people for what they are." And accept, more importantly, society's rules. He talks about society's rules of privacy and things like this. And he's like, "Hey, just kind of know your station, know your place, and accept people." And then he's like, "Oh man, I really hate having to give you drugs, Billy, but and he's writing it out like he's done it like a million times for this kid. He's like, "Oh god, I hate to have to do this, but if it gets you out of my fucking office, take these drugs." But Bill is having none of it, and he calls Blanchard from the office. He's like, "Hey, I need another copy of that tape." Yeah. He says, "No, I need it right now, even though I stole the tape. Hopefully, you've got copies because I need another one."
And he does the movie cliche of, "Where shall I meet you? Oh, I shall meet you on 3rd Street."
Yeah, he doesn't go, "Yeah, cool, I'll see you there." He says, "I will meet you on 3rd Street outside the 2nd traffic light." Like it's like super specific. Here are the northings and eastings and the XY coordinates. So of course he drives there to collect the tape, only to find that Blanchard has been in a terrible accident. His whole van's been turned upside down and looks like the Hulk smashed it up.
And what I do like is the blood inside the van looks like it's been put on with a ketchup bottle.
Yeah,
it's clearly like really rubbishly done.
Mm-hmm. Isn't his license plate is like air or something as well?
Yeah.
Like his whole persona is based around being a creepy fuck.
just like listening to stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Everyone needs a hobby. Mine is bugging people's families. I do like, however, the shot when he backs up into the crime scene and ends up standing on the blood and the glass, and he's like, "Oh God." But yeah, so
this is the first time we see the creepy sort of police and ambulance people as well that keep appearing throughout the movie.
But on the floor is the spy briefcase with everything in it. And Bill leans down to try and, see if he can find a copy of the tape.
Yeah.
But what he finds is the dictaphone already open. And then before he can look any further, a police officer turns up. Out of nowhere, because the police officers seemingly disappeared, but they're back. Although I guess there were probably more there because of the crash.
Yeah, well, we see the paramedic disappear with the body, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Just sort of in the background.
Mm-hmm. So Bill heads home to his mansion. And he's clearly distraught. His sister's creepy stalker is dead. Although you do get the impression that he was friends with him. Like,
yeah, you get the impression that the three of them, him and the other guy as well, is it Milo?
Yeah,
were at some point all best mates.
Yeah, and then Blanchard fell in love with his sister, and it became really awkward. But there's still some friendship there, and he's clearly upset. But as he comes in, shell shocked, he's met by his whole family, who are super excited to tell him that party he wasn't allowed to go to, he wasn't invited to, he's now got a written invitation to go to the party. And his dad even bigs it up, and he's like, "Oh, this is good for you. This is a big move. It's going to be one hell of a party."
And excuse me. I love the way he keeps trying to sort of say, "Hey, I've got something to tell you." And it's like, "Oh, well, this party is really important." It's like, but I've got to tell you about it. Well, this is great. This is good for you, and all this sort of stuff.
But then his dad, like, nonchalantly is just like, "Yeah, we know about the automobile accident. It's fine. Don't worry about it."
We know your best mate just died horribly in an accident.
Yeah, we just murdered him. Yeah, but no one cares, and he's even like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Jenny." And she's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna really miss him."
Oh yeah, I'm gonna miss
it's like,
him.
honest, I'm gonna really, really miss him. Yeah, it's a real shame. Anyway, but yeah, and then she's like, "But what are you gonna wear to the party?"
Yeah. She has this amazing bouncy quality that is just brilliant. It's so funny when she does that.
Yeah, she is great. There, as you said before the show, there is some ropey acting in this, but she's great.
Yeah. That is the. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie, and I will say, it's not quite as good as I remember it being.
No, me either. But it was very fun.
But it's such a fun movie.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I think it's worth watching for the effects alone.
Oh, the effects are amazing. It's totally worth watching for the effects. But I also think it's a fun movie. Like, you can get the message. It's clunky, but you get it, Yeah.
And I think that there was a thing about this is also that it was released over here in '89.
Yeah.
In America, it wasn't released until '92.
Wasn't it? It was released in Japan first, right?
Might have been released in Japan. No, I think London was got it at its premiere.
Oh, really? I thought I saw on IMDb that it was Japan first, but I could be wrong.
I think it was. I think London was the premiere, but it had quite a small run over here, but did massively well. It did really well in Europe and in Asia. America just didn't do anything.
I mean, to be fair, this movie fits right in with Italian horror. That's fine, because that doesn't need to make any sense.
The body horror stuff fits in very well with some of the Japanese stuff as well. So it's
absolutely.
And I think the sort of the actual society thing, that the higher up stuff against the lower people, plays in very well with British audiences, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that the Americans just took it as a joke and just didn't see it as didn't get the fun of it.
Yeah.
That the European audiences did, which seems to be a shame. It's out now, and I think it did better on when it came on video. But yeah, it took 3 years to come out in America, which is like weird.
So anyway, the answer to his sister's question about what he's going to wear to the party is he's not really going to make any effort whatsoever. He just basically turns up in a jacket and.
He's got a tie on though, hasn't he?
No, he's just got like an open like he's got like a polo shirt and a like khaki jacket thing, I think, and his hair's all disheveled. Like his friend just died, so
yeah,
I'll let him off. But he kind of walks around really awkwardly, and everyone kind of looks at him like he doesn't belong there. We've all been there.
Yeah, everybody is, but I think in this instance, everybody really is looking at him.
Oh yeah, no, this is not paranoia. This is like, genuinely.
It's not just me at a party where I think everybody's looking at me. It's
this one's for real.
It genuinely is everybody looking at him.
Yes, but somebody's looking at him somewhat differently. As he sees what is her bloody name? Why do I keep forgetting her name? Clarissa. And she is very into him. She immediately starts dancing with him, and they start talking. And she seems to know too much. He's like, "How do you know? You know my parents' name, and like you know who I am." And she seems to know quite a bit, but of course Milo comes in and interrupts.
Well, he makes a joke, doesn't it? And he says, "Do you know my mum's maiden name as well?" And she says, "Real or adopted?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, sure, it's a throwaway joke, but it isn't.
Yeah. But Milo, of course, turns up and he's like, "Have you heard what fucking happened? Like, our friend is dead." And he's like, "Yeah, I gotta go though. I've got to go follow this girl."
Yeah.
And he goes into like the, I don't know, drug tent.
Yeah, some sort of marquee, isn't it, for the.
Yeah, it's like Caesar's tent, I guess.
Yeah. Well, now I'm gonna forget his name.
Asshole.
What? Sorry,
Mr. Asshole. I don't know.
Yeah, Ferguson.
Ferguson, that's right. Yes.
He's the biggest fucking douche on the planet.
Well, you kind of get like the movie's kind of set up to where he's Bill's with the jocks and Ferguson's with the kind of tennis players, I guess. Like the more kind of upper class of the upper class. They're all bloody rich, but even with the rich, there's this hierarchy in this school. Yeah,
he's with the football players. The other dudes with
polo or something. Yeah. And he's an idiot.
Yep.
He starts a fight with him, even though it's like at his party, surrounded by his friends.
Yeah.
He takes a swing at him.
Where almost everybody is like twice his size as well.
Yeah, everyone's twice his size. Everyone has already been very clear they don't like him. Yep. He starts an argument with Ferguson and punches him in the face. He gets away lightly, I think. They just throw him in the swimming pool. I think they punch him in the gut and then throw him in the swimming pool.
Yeah, I was surprised at how...
Could have been worse.
They don't even eject him. They just chuck him in the pool.
That's true. I would have been like, you can leave my party.
Yeah.
I
guess that's, I suppose, just shows how little regard they give him. It's like they don't even bother to get rid of him. They just dump him in the pool.
Well, they had to dump him in the pool for the joke. Because Clarissa comes up and is like, "Wet dreams?" I was like, okay, that's why you did that, wasn't it, film? That's the entire reason you did that. Okay. Fair enough. And she immediately starts flirting with him again. She's like, "Hey, you're in danger of losing a button." And then she rips it off. She's like, "Oops."
She is completely weird.
Oh, yeah. She is like, she like exudes crazy.
She is very, very unhinged.
Yeah, clearly.
Like even for all of his friends, like all of his, I say friends, the enemies, as it were, they're all odd. But she seems like she's got more than a few screw looses.
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, she's like drop dead gorgeous, but clearly insane. Like she's got trouble written all over her. She's like, this is not a good idea. But of course, being a teenager, you're gonna do it anyway. So whatever. So they go up to, I guess, her room or a room that's free in the house.
I think it's just, I presume, one of the bedrooms in the house.
And there's like this really weird scene where she's like in her nightie So either she's had a shower or she's got out of her clothes, but he's still in his soaking wet clothes.
Yep.
I don't know quite. I don't understand the setup for this scene, how we got to this stage. But anyway, she starts taking his clothes off, which makes sense because he's wet, right? And then they start making out. So I understand the end of the scene. I don't understand the setup for the start of the scene.
I think it's just basically she's gone in, she's trying to seduce him, while he's being gormless, basically.
Yes, while he's being awkward and, he's being very first-timey.
Yeah. Yeah, you do get the impression that this is probably his first time, even though he's got a girlfriend.
Well, his girlfriend, clearly wasn't up for that earlier. I mean, that was on a public beach, so I guess she had a point. But, but still, so, maybe it is his first time. I think they do have sex here, right?
Oh yeah.
Because this is where he sees her all like bent out of shape, and doesn't he see her arm come over her own back? Is that what he first sees?
It's basically her left arm has gone right the way over her.
Yes.
And it's, coming over onto the right.
So of course he's like, he kind of jumps back like, oh my god, what the hell? And he basically jumps onto the floor and he's like, oh, you were in a really weird position and I don't understand.
What? He falls on the floor, and as he's looking up at her, she's
all backwards, like
her legs are
the wrong way
around from her torso, basically.
Yeah.
And then when he looks back again, she's normal.
Meanwhile, his girlfriend's outside in her car with her friend who is at the party, and her friend is a total bitch. Because, hey, you did the friend thing. No, she's not. She is not. Right, so she was being a good friend, being at the party and seeing it and reporting back. But then she's in the car and she's all like, imagine what she's doing to him up there. Imagine. It's like, you fucking bitch. Like, you are just winding this up.
Yeah, she does look like she's getting off on it.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree. I agree that going to the party and reporting back was a good thing, but she definitely crosses the line with the like, oh, imagine the crazy, sexy sex they're having up there. So anyway, we then cut back and she's now they're out of bed and she's making him a cup of tea and she's like, would you like milk or shall I pee in it or something?
Yeah, would you like milk? Was it milk or cream or shall I pee in it? It's like, oh, you really are not all that, are you, love?
But he's still, I mean, I guess if it was his first time or whatever, he's going back for more. He's clearly still into her. The I think his girlfriend finally gives up, doesn't she? Just drive off in the end.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're having more sex when he looks up and he's like, Clarissa, who the hell is this? And of course it's the woman from the beach. And
she looks like she's wandered in from a John Walters movie.
Yeah, and she's holding hair.
Yeah. She's got this like a massive sort of elaborate makeup on, and she's like, okay, where the fuck did you come from, love?
Yeah, and she starts trying to talk to her mother, and her mother just coughs up more hair because he goes to shake her hand, doesn't he?
Yeah,
and it's more blonde hair.
And the movie never explains her at all.
No, never explains her or what's happened here.
No.
She's got an obsession with hair. That's made clear later.
I'm presuming she's not her real mother.
I'm guessing not. And that would fall in line with the adopted joke as well.
But she does seem to sort of
she cares.
Have affection for her, even though she treats her like shit.
Yeah.
I guess it's like a pet thing again, maybe? I don't know.
It is weird. Because he even questions it. He's like, what's the deal with her? With your mum? Yeah. There's no nice way to put this. And she's like, she does things I don't like. That's pretty much all she says about it. But I remember, I thought the first time I saw this that she'd like killed his girlfriend and we'd find her dead later because like the blonde hair and stuff. I was like, oh god, did she just like murder them both in the car or something? And now she's come in with like half her fucking hair in her hand.
Yeah,
but they never explain it and she's fine. So who knows? I guess some days later, maybe the next, well, Don't know how fast funerals happen. Probably not that fast. He's now. Bill is ready for the funeral, and he's walking out to his car or his Jeep, and he finds a blow up sex doll with another doll shoved in its mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, and the doll has a sash. It says Clarissa on it.
Yep.
Just in time for his girlfriend to come storming over.
The little doll
got his name
on it, hasn't it?
Yeah. So of course he's like, "Oh, Shauna, I need to explain. It's not what you think." But then of course she sees this blow up doll with Clarissa written across it, and just like, "What the fuck is there to say? I'm off." The timing's great though, because he's like, "Oh, Shauna, look," and then as he does it, he's obviously still got it in his hand. So she like looks down at it, and she just storms off.
This is all perfectly normal, honestly.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, if I was her, I'd be like, "Yeah, no." I'm out. I'm out.
Great, does it?
But yeah, so not a great way to start your funeral day.
No.
But in any case, I can't remember. Does he go? He goes back in the house, doesn't he? And he finds his parents weirdly massaging his daughter.
Yeah.
Or sister, sorry. And because he throws the sex doll on the bed, and he's like, "What the fuck is this?" And they're all like, "This is disgusting. What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he's like, he's assuming that it was them that did it.
Yep.
I
don't. It's a sort of I don't find this funny sort of thing. You know what you're doing, and they're like, "We don't know what the fuck you're talking about."
Yeah, and then they're like, "Hey, you need to get to school. And hey, don't you look really good in a tie." And she's like, don't you think? And he's like, "Oh yeah, you do. You should wear a tie more often." And he's like, "I'm going to a fucking funeral. I'm not going to school." And he even says, he's like, "Why are you guys like this?" Like he starts questioning it. He's like, "Why are you like this?"
Yeah.
And again, I think they mentioned the like, "Oh, you'll make us, well, not you'll make us proud. You'll do wonderful things for society, for our society.
Make a wonderful contribution to society."
Yeah.
That is. I mean, how many kids might have said that to their parents? It's like, "Why are you like this?"
Yeah. And he basically gets assy with his supposed mother, and his father says, "Hey, don't you disrespect your mother like that." And he's like, "My mother?" He's like, "God knows where my mother is." And then of course he calls his dad a butthead.
Yeah.
Which will be, you wouldn't have thought would be a key plot point, but is a key plot point later in this film. So he heads to the ceremony, the church. Although it's like I'm not sure what kind of church it is, but anyway, they head to the church and they talk about it's an open coffin, open casket, and they talk about how weird he looks. And they say, "Oh yeah, I guess they all look like that." Bill says, like, I guess they just all look like that. They they look weird. But of course that comes back later as well.
And he touches the face, doesn't he? And it sort of cracks.
Yeah. Doesn't he notice something? He notices because isn't it Milo that touches his face? Then he walks away, and then Bill looks around and he sees the crack. Yeah.
Well, he says that they must have done some serious reconstruction work. He must have been like,
a total mess. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he meets that his opposition in the candidacy.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, I got to talk to you later."
Petrie.
Yeah. He says, "Hey, meet me later at this place. Can't talk to you now, but I need to talk to you about something about this society. I need to meet with you later." And so, of course, he does. He heads off. And he basically comes across the car in the woods, right?
Yep.
I think.
Yeah, it's all sort of. They've got that sort of spooky lights flickering and.
Yeah.
The in a weird place, like how the fuck they got that car there in the first place, I don't know, but because it looks like it's in like a pit, doesn't it? It doesn't look like it's just on a road or anything.
No. And meanwhile, his friend Milo is like kind of following him, I guess, like out of concern or whatever. And he does see a van. He does see a vehicle pulling out from the turning where he's just come in. The inference being that, hey, there's some shenanigans have occurred here. But yeah, he goes down and he finds this car. And it's not in a good state. You know, like you said, it's got that classic, we don't want to actually smash this car up, so we'll just make the lights flash a bit and make it look like, you know.
Well, it's actually it's a you know, posh car, isn't it? So
oh yeah.
Get that.
Yeah, they'll turn over a van and smash that up, but not this.
Yeah.
Anyway, he approaches the door and opens it to find him dead with like a machete in his neck, or either a machete or like part of the car, I guess.
Throat cut, isn't he?
And he hears a noise behind him and runs out to find who it is. And of course he runs into Milo.
He first runs into somebody who's got like, is it trousers or something that's hanging from a tree?
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Because I'm not quite sure if it's, you don't see quite who it is, but I think it's Ferguson.
Yeah.
And yes, you do. Yeah, because I think you see him later on.
He jumps down, doesn't he? Afterwards, I think.
Yeah. He gets away with these like trousers or whatever the hell it was that was hanging up, and he tries to, and then he runs into Milo.
That's right. And yeah, he basically goes straight to, I think he goes to the party, right? Because at the party, the police are there. I'm not quite sure what happens. Sorry, the funeral home. Because for some reason, when he comes back, Clarissa's with him as well for reasons unknown. She's just there.
Well, he jumps over. He jumps over the fence.
Oh, she answers the door, doesn't she? That's right.
And it's her house.
It's her house, right?
That's right in front of the like forest or whatever it was. And he's like, the door's already open, and he goes in, and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "I live here."
There we go. See, I watched this film this morning before work to try, because my memory is that bad, and we got quite far. We got like halfway, but anyway, he takes the police back to the car, and
one, it's a different car.
Yeah, it's a totally different car. There's no body. There is some blood on like a.
No, it's not. It's not blood. It's a red scarf.
Oh, that's right. It's a red scarf
on the seat. Or
yeah,
a red piece of material.
And basically the police kind of warn him for playing a prank and wasting their time.
Yep.
And he's like, "This is not how I left it," and you know, they're having none of it. They're like, "Yeah, there's a warning this time. Next time it'll be more than that." And they head off. And Clarissa says, "Well, what now? You can head home with me." And he's like, "I'm not in the mood." And she's like, "That's not what I meant. I just meant if you want to come home, you can come home." I wasn't implying anything. But yeah, he ends up falling asleep with her in his Jeep, right?
Yeah.
I think they both fall asleep together in the Jeep. So it's time for another debate. I don't know how many of these debates take place, but
no.
You know, another one's going on. He meets his sister there, who says like, "Hey, you didn't come home last night. What is going on?" You know, Mum and Dad were worried. I doubt they were, but you know. And Bill's like, "Hey, have you got anything you want to tell me?" He's like, "Look, if you just want to tell me something, you know, I swear I won't go crazy. Just tell me the truth." And she's like, "What do you mean?" Like, you know, she says, "Well, I'm worried about you, but that's about it. I don't know what you're talking about." And yeah, so he heads up for the debate. And he starts giving this emotional speech because he didn't really get on with the guy, but Petrie's dead, and he's still blood gushing from his neck and whatnot. And he's meant to be his debate opposition, but he's like, hey, look, he's not going to be here today. You know, terrible tragedies happened. He's dead. And then he says, look, and Blanchard's death was not an accident. Blanchard was trying to tell me something about a society that is trying to keep its existence a secret, and they're willing to kill to keep it a secret. And of course the students are laughing, but he's like kind of bearing his soul.
Yeah.
But you know, he's like, hey, I saw Petrie. I saw him in the canyon last night. He was murdered. And there is some gasps then at that from the audience. He's like, look, Martin Petrie is dead, but you can see the front row are kind of smirking and laughing. And then of course Petrie turns up and everyone starts laughing.
Yep.
And he says, oh, I had car trouble.
Yeah. And Ferguson produces the trousers or whatever the hell they were that.
Yeah, and Petrie's even like scratching his neck, like playing with his neck.
Yeah.
So it's clear they played a prank on him, and it's a horrible prank to play on someone who just lost one of their best friends to a horrible car accident. Like, guys, you definitely look like the assholes here. But Milo says, look, you know, they go outside. He's really upset. Milo follows him, and he says, look, I need to come clean. The sex doll and the Ken doll and the shrunken head, that was me. I was playing a prank, and of course, you know, Bill like loses his mind. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" He's like, "Why would you do that?" He's like, "Listen, just calm down. I followed you last night because I was worried about you, and I saw the whole thing. It was weird. I saw, you know, because he saw the body as well, right?
Yeah, you get him. He saw them turning up.
Yeah."
Sort of like setting up, I think, basically, is what he said he saw.
And yeah, Bill asks, he's like, why the dolls? And he basically says, just because you made me angry.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a really weird way to that's a really weirdly specific, strange way to try and get revenge on a friend you're angry with. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually people just stop talking. They're like, I'm not talking to you anymore, I've had enough. But the sex doll and the Ken doll and stuff, the shrunken head, it's a weird way to go about it. But fine.
Let's face it, nobody in this movie is fucking normal.
No, nobody.
They're all fucking weird.
But anyway, Milo basically says, you know, I've got your back. Effectively. So Bill ends up heading home, I guess sometime that evening. And Milo does the same. I'm trying to think where he goes. Oh yeah, he comes in and there's the family are there. I think the doctor is there, and they're staging like an intervention, aren't they? Effectively, they're like, "Yeah, you're crazy. We need to deal with you." And of course, the doctor again, he's like, "Well, you know, I hate to give you drugs," and he just starts pulling out the needle and like injecting him in the arm.
Yeah.
And these paramedics come out of nowhere and like hold him down, and the judge is there for some reason.
Yep.
So yeah, he gets knocked out, and they put him in a stretcher, put him in an ambulance. But luckily, Milo was closely behind him and sees them putting him into the back of the ambulance. So he basically follows them down to the hospital. He tries to. He's like, he goes to reception. And he's like, "Miss, Bill, William. I'm here to see William." And she's just like, "Oh, hang on, let me fucking check." And she starts looking at her. She's clearly not interested.
Are you family? And he's like, "Yeah, of course I am."
Yeah. She's like, "Are you family?" Like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" But yeah, and then while he's waiting for her, because the phone rings, doesn't it? And she goes to answer the phone, and he finds a body in the hallway covered up on a gurney, and he goes to uncover it, and then she interferes, and that's when she says, "Are you family?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course I am." But of course, while he's distracted, they wheel the body away.
Yeah.
And she basically says, "Leave now. I don't want to call security. And basically he ends up leaving through the front door. But he gets outside, and then he sees that weirdly the Jeep is outside, parked up. So something weird is going on. He arrived in an ambulance, but now the Jeep is here for some reason. And Milo is totally confused. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Bill is he's kind of like having a nightmare synopsis of the movie so far. Like, we don't see it, we just hear it. We hear like voiceover at the key moments. And he wakes up with a start thinking about Blanchard. And he overhears and can see shadows of people talking about, they're like, oh, let's get this one out of here, and there's sounds of struggling, and they're taking this person away. And he basically goes to I don't know whether he goes to like see what's going on, but he ends up pulling down the whole thing and revealing that there's no one back there.
Yeah.
So again, it's a potential hallucination on his part. Mm-hmm. But luckily behind that, all of his clothes are there, so he manages to get his clothes back on, and he walks back out through the front door. Receptionist is not worth a shit. And yeah, so he's like equally confused because he gets outside and he's like, okay, yeah.
He's actually not just confused at this point though, is he? He's sort of manic as well.
Yeah. This is like clearly driving him over the edge.
Yeah, because when he actually does talk to Milo again, he's full on sort of like almost laughing and hysterically.
Yeah, because Milo says, like, they told me you were dead, and he's like, oh, that's just the way things seem, Milo, and he's like, I'm here, aren't I? And I'm free. And yeah, he's like clearly this fragile teenager has now been sent over the edge. I think this would send me over the edge, to be honest.
You'd have thought so, wouldn't you?
Even without all the family issues, what just happened would definitely send me over the edge.
Yep.
But actually, Milo's a good one. In terms of people in this movie.
He turns out to be, I mean, for most of the movie, he's been like a little odd. And
he's been odd, yeah. The doll thing is odd.
Yeah.
But, he's a concerned friend here. And, yeah, so Bill heads to see Clarissa. And he's like, he's like, where's the party? And she's like, where's your mum? And he ends up grabbing her and being quite aggressive with her. Mm-hmm. And she's like clearly concerned and upset at the way he's being, but then she manages to calm him a bit. She's like, hey, why don't you stay a while? And she kind of becomes more loving, and he calms down enough to where he lets go. And then she's like, look, why don't you just go home? And he said, why would I go? He is like, why would I go home? It's time to party. And he ends up storming out. He then finds Milo outside, because Milo at this point is just going everywhere with him.
He's just following him
around. And yeah, Bill's been kicked out, so now he's heading off again. Milo goes to head to his car to follow. Only for his hair to be grabbed by Clarissa's mother, who has like crazy colored 80s hair now and makeup. And he leaves her in the back. He's like, fine, you're coming too, I guess, but don't grab my hair anymore.
Acquired a pet.
Yeah, it's weird because he's not like, get out of my car. He's like, okay, you can stay, but just don't grab my hair anymore. So anyway, Bill pulls up and heads in, and it's kind of a very similar shot to the opening of the movie, where he goes into the kitchen. This time he's getting some water, but he's all sweaty like he was in the opening.
Yeah.
He's not in the same clothes, but it's clearly reminiscent, and he does find a knife. And I think I always assumed to prove that he's not having a hallucination, he cuts himself with the knife.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm assuming that's why he did it.
It's a sort of wake up thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like pinching yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's extreme pinching.
Yeah.
And yeah, so he grabs the knife, he cuts himself, and then he heads upstairs. And he starts basically skulking about the dark house, much like we did in the opening. He starts calling out for his mum and his dad. He's like, "Mum, Dad." But then he hears I think he hears the car, right?
I think so.
And he sees his mum and dad. They come in through the front door, I think, because wasn't it Milo basically beeping the horn to say, "Hey, they're outside"?
Yeah.
They come in and are like, "Oh, he's like, Mum, Dad, I need to talk to you." But then, of course, all the lights come on, and everybody's there. They've got those. What would you call it? It's like a restraining collar on a stick on a pole.
Yeah, it's what they use
in prison, isn't it? It's like a prison thing.
The noose is what they use for dogs.
Oh, that's right. It's a dog thing. It's not a human thing.
It's a dog catching noose.
Yeah. And
wire on a stick, basically.
Yes, a wire on a stick. And they grab him and hold him down, and everyone's in their finest, all dressed to the nines. And the doctor introduces the judge. Big ceremony. Everyone's clapping. Everyone's acting wonderful and upper class while Bill's on the floor being strangled. And of course the doctor says, "Hey, you guys were brilliant. You the parents." He's like, you played your part magnificently." And the judge is like, "Yep, well done. Very very effective, very efficient." And yeah, he says like, "Well, at the very least, this was all very entertaining."
Yeah, if nothing else, he entertained us.
Mm.
And what's he say? He says, "I love the thrill of the hunt and the taste of the shunt."
Yeah. Of course, Bill is on the floor like, what is going on? What's happening?
And I love the whole sort of idea that, they did this really great thing for us. They raised this, this pig from,
they hand reared this animal.
Yeah,
basically.
It's like they hand reared the animal from a baby and in their own home. Look at what they did. They're amazing. It's like, okay.
And he says, like, "What's going on?" And the judge is like, "Well, it's like this. There's no business like show business." And everyone starts laughing. And then he's like, "Mum, like, help me." And she's like, "I'm not your mother." And his dad's like, "I'm not your father." So of course his suspicions were 100% true. And they say, "Hey, you're not part of this. We're not like you. We're not even the same species. Like you need to be born into this society, and you weren't born into it." And of course he starts calling them alien scum.
Yeah, alien scum.
Yeah,
like, yeah, we're not aliens. We just existed alongside you.
Yeah,
forever.
And then he says like it's all about good breeding, really. Yeah. But of course he sees Ferguson's there. Petrie's there. Everyone, all of them are there. All the assholes. And then of course, like, I think more and more people start arriving. Milo's outside with Clarissa's mum, who he gets weirder and weirder the longer Clarissa's mum is in this without any explanation.
Yep.
They just never explain it.
She doesn't say anything at all.
No, never. And they never explain what the deal is with her or anything.
Nope.
She's just a strange person. But they both see Clarissa turn up.
Yeah.
Clarissa's dressed for the party as well. And she heads on in. She looks worried as she's heading in, though. Or somewhat concerned, I should say. Meanwhile, Bill is being brought... He's kind of like being dragged through the party, isn't he? So everyone can kind of see him. He's being kind of paraded.
It's like, look at being presented the feast, as it were.
Yes, and of course the waiters are there with slugs. They're handing out slugs as like canapes.
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of like laughing at Bill. Clarissa comes in. She's clearly not happy about this. She looks upset for him. Of course, Ferguson immediately jumps on her.
Yep.
And the idea is that whole thing was kind of a setup, but she clearly was not a particularly happy participant in this whole thing.
Well, you get the impression that she's slightly separate from them.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
But you also get the feeling that she genuinely feels for Billy.
Yeah.
So she has actually fallen in love with Billy.
Yes, despite her status and despite her species.
Yeah.
I'd go with that.
I think so. I think that's how it certainly comes across.
Yeah. Outside, Milo sees them bringing in someone else. Someone with a hood over their head. So we can't see who it is, but they're struggling. And of course they're brought in much the same way. And then I think Milo has to fight off the mother again because she just tries eating his hair or whatever the hell she's doing, and he's like, no, stop that and come with me. I need your help. I love, like, during all of this, the people are all just kind of talking and just, like normal upper society like chit chat, talking about Jen,
garden parties, soiree type things.
But it's all really perverted and weird. Like the doctor's got his hands on his sister's breasts and stuff while they're talking.
Yeah.
It's all real creepy and weird, and real slimy. And then, of course, this person is brought in by the neck, and the judge says, "Hey, it's an extra special night tonight, as we get 2 for 1." And of course, Bill's like, who could this possibly be? And of course, the mask is pulled off to reveal that it's Blanchard. Blanchard is alive. And he's basically dragged through the room. And yeah, the judge basically says, there's a double header tonight. And he says to Bill, he's like, hey, you oh no, it's Ferguson. Isn't it Ferguson that says, well, watch this, because this is you. After this is,
yeah.
And yeah, so the orgy basically begins with Blanchard, and it kind of starts with, they're human to begin with, shaped actually, anyway.
I like the way they start off, because they've brought him in, and in the background you've got them, the sort of guests calmly and just sort of matter of factly taking off their jackets and folding them up and taking off their dresses and handing them to staff, sort of thing.
And they basically get very sweaty and gooey, and basically just start kind of molesting him, but in human form, and then you start seeing people have changed.
Yep.
Like you see that woman's face is all like elongated and attached to him, and then more and more people do that. Their hands go in and out of his body and stuff. It's really hard to describe with words. It's just something you need to see, I think.
It's a mass of flesh that molds and moves, with fingers going into buttocks.
Yeah.
Not just going into buttocks, but like going
into cheeks. Yes.
Yeah. And then there's all this sort of slime coming off of them, and there are people in awkward positions that bodies shouldn't be stretched into.
Yeah.
And it's basically the inspiration was a couple of Dali paintings.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So autumn cannibalism and soft construction with boiled beams is if you look at the paintings, you can clearly see what the inspiration, especially sort of like stretched limbs and
Mm.
stretched breasts and things. He's like, oh, okay, I see what they did there.
Right.
The construction is that it's amazing what he did with this, with the effects of this. I mean, because he built it all. They built it all themselves, and
yeah.
Obviously it's built into they built the floor up, and it's in there are like I think 5 or 6 people underneath moving all the parts or are in part of the sort of like basically puppets, as it were, moving around.
Right. Yeah.
While everybody's like just sort of either attached, like because you can clearly see them like attached by the face, and they've been made up. It's amazing feat of engineering, let alone making things. And for mostly, it still fucking holds up amazingly.
I think it holds up remarkably well.
This particular, the shunt scene itself is still fantastic.
I agree.
There's only one. There's 2 bits that are a little ropey. The mother, when he goes into the bedroom later.
Yeah, with the butt head. The butt head looks good, but after that,
great.
Yeah.
Butt head is fantastic.
The wide shot does not look good.
The mum and daughter merge walking around.
Yeah,
isn't great.
It's clearly like some really ropey mask that they've just kind of chucked on.
Yeah, and the one that's annoying is the psychiatrist's smile.
Oh yeah, it looks really bad.
It's just the wrong color.
Yeah,
they didn't blend the color enough, and it you can see that it's a prosthesis on his face, which is it's so annoying because it would look good if they just got the color right.
I agree totally.
For the majority, it looks fantastic.
It does. I think it held up. Rewatching it. So
and it's just gross. It's just fucking gross.
Oh yeah, god yeah, it's so slimy and disgusting.
Added to the fact that which is so great is you've got these collection of naked people, and it's not just sort of like the usual young people.
No, all ages and all shapes as well.
Sorry,
all ages and all shapes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the judge himself is just—he's gross. He's as a naked guy.
Yeah,
it's just old naked guy is just going like lurching over this poor kid.
Yeah,
and I love it when he says about, oh look, he's got a beauty mark. It's like it's almost like I'm having that later.
Yeah. So Ferguson grabs Bill and he's like, hey, you're next. But Clarissa actually fights him. She kind of like fights him for the stick to grab the stick. And he kind of admonishes her. He's like, oh, you're like taking after the livestock, and you got feelings for this animal, and he's like, oh, don't worry about it, you'll get your share and whatnot.
Yeah. You get that bit where he's saying about this is how it is. Rich people have always fed off lower class shit like you, and he does that sort of like the tongue comes out, and it's like this huge long tongue.
I love the outside Milo and the mum presumably knock out some security guards or police.
Well, yeah, he does a cop, isn't it?
And he takes the hat, but then he like takes the outfit and walks away, and then the mother's just stood there, and she obviously went to rip the hair off this guy's head, but it was a toupee.
He says, "Look, Mrs. whatever her name is, hair," and so she attacks the copper. She knocks him down.
But it's clearly a toupee because afterwards she's just holding the head. She's like totally confused. So yeah, inside, Blanchard is in a bad way. He's basically starts getting like more and more fucked up. They like the shot with the hand coming through the mouth looks amazing.
Yeah,
like that shot really held up.
Yeah.
They're filming it as well with these old 80s 90s VHS tape recorders. And finally Clarissa frees in all the confusion, because they're all kind of obsessed with this orgy. Obviously,
aren't they? It's all they're all sort of
I mean Ferguson wasn't, so I guess now they've started to become more more interested as time's going on. She frees him and she says, "I love you." She admits her love for him. He's shocked for a moment, and then he runs. And it's kind of weirdly cut because they all grab at him and he just barely gets away. But then they're like, "Oh, where are you?" And it's almost like he's disappeared. But I guess they're just toying with him. Because you get this is where you get the judge with the awkward kind of face, and you're right, because the makeup's not terrible. It like the effect isn't terrible. It's just not blended properly. Yeah,
it's just badly blended.
But yeah, he's chasing after him with the animal leash. And he says, "Hey, I'll give you a hand," and then his whole face turns into a giant hand.
I love that. Yeah, that's so cool. And then, so, Screamman George had done this painting of himself, and it's the painting is really cool. It's of him with his skin coming off, like it's like layered of like the skin. Then there's his skull, and then there's more skin behind him. All these hands, and behind him there is this man with a hand head, and he showed it to Yuzna and said, "Hey, do you think we can do this?" And Yuzna was like, "Yes, hell yes, give me that." So they built this massive head thing, and it's so creepy because he's got this big sort of, the big head, and his own hand is coming out as well in the same shape, like looking like it's gonna flick Billy as it comes to.
Oh yeah, because his hand is in exactly the same shape, isn't he?
Yeah, and Billy basically manages to escape him.
Well, he escapes into the bedroom, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which is where he finds his mum on the bed, and she's like, "Oh, Billy, you came to see me," but she's got her legs are like the hands of the father.
Yeah, her legs are the dad's arms, and the lower part of her is the daughter.
Yes.
Because as I like the bit where he's like, I can't remember whether he falls over or whether he's low.
He falls. I think she trips him, doesn't she? Or
yeah, she's over him. The mother's over him, and the daughter's head comes out between the legs, as it were.
Yes.
And she says, "Was it? Hey, if there were any of those Oedipal fantasies you had, now's your time to do it." It's like,
and of course he like crawls away from her only to find the butthead father.
Yeah, the dad comes out from underneath the covers, and he's literally a face coming out of his own ass.
Yeah.
And I love the way he does this. His delivery is just brilliant. It's like, "Hey, son, hey, I guess you were right. I am a butthead," and he sort of laughs and does this whole like farting thing, and it's like, wow, they really did want that. I mean, you can see they had that joke like.
Oh, you can tell there's a few shots there's a few bits in this movie, and you're like, you just did that for this joke. Like, it's the only reason you did it.
Yep. And you know what? Fair play to him.
Oh no, he's fine. He's fine. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
it totally works. So. Billy manages to get back outside. He runs back outside and past the judge. Milo comes inside wearing the police uniform, and now Blanchard is he's like unrecognizable, and there's just this big writhing mass of stuff on the floor, and they're eating eyes out of it and God knows what. It's a total shit show. And they're all like bathed in blood now.
Well, no, that's the thing about this whole sequence. There is no blood.
Is it not blood? It might be the lighting. Maybe they just turned the lighting red.
Yeah, it's all just sort of goo and stuff, And they want So originally, the original script, it was just a cult.
Right.
They were going to sacrifice him, and it was going to be blood and gore. And Yuzna didn't want that. He decided that he wanted to do something weird and different, and
he succeeded.
More surreal,
and
he basically, got Screamman George, and they discussed, hey, like just go mad, and that's basically what they did.
Right.
They just wanted to do. As Yuzna said, I just wanted to do something surreal. I didn't really care about the story so much. I just wanted a weird, surreal nightmare, basically. And it's like, yep, you succeeded with that. You did a stunning job, I think.
Yeah.
And he got this because he's Yuzna's quite funny. I saw in this interview where he was saying that he was a sort of hippie, and he was with his girlfriend, I think, or his wife at the time, and they were on holiday in LA, in Hollywood, and they were sort of just wandering around, and he said they ended up in this place where they were filming something, and then he said the bell went off, and all this catering staff came out, and all these people like having this great time, and he said, I was on holiday, but they were having more fun just this, and he was like, I need to get into movies, and he's like, he said I was already like in my 30s, but I need to get into movies. So he got into sort of movies that way, and he got Reanimator done.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And he realized that he had, because Reanimator did really well, he realized that he could sort of play with this. So because he had the rights to Reanimator, he basically said to the company, sure, we'll do a second one, but I want to do my own thing too.
Yeah.
He basically put, kind of sort of held them hostage for his own sort of movie.
Or really negotiated, I guess.
Yeah, and that's what he did. So he made sure that number 2 was ready as long as he got to do this one first.
Yeah.
And obviously it didn't turn out quite as well in his own country, but
elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I think it's beloved now.
Oh yeah, it's
a cult classic.
The cult following, it's certainly in America it did pick up, when it was released on video, but initially.
Mm. So, Clarissa is being kind of grabbed by Ferguson. She's trying to get away from him when Billy comes down and rescues her, pulls her out from the orgy, and Ferguson says, oh, do you want to go? And he's like, yeah, you and me, we're gonna have it out. And I love the mayor is like, oh, a slave revolt.
Yeah.
They're all kind of seeing it as a joke. Clarissa's like, oh, you don't understand, Billy. Like, he'll kill you. Like,
we've got the main thing about the how poor old Blanchard ends up. Basically, the judge inserts his hand up his anus.
Oh yeah, that was earlier. That's when his hand comes out of his face. Yeah.
Yeah. But you get that really cool. You see the hand going all the way up his body. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
You don't see it, but you see
the effects are incredible. I genuinely think the effects work.
So good. And so you get that, and then you get the sort of this beginning of this fight, and I think it's the psychiatrist that says about the revolt, because the psychiatrist now is gone. He's complete sort of weird clown now. He's all sort of like giggly and sort of manic
because the judge is finishing off Blanchard, right? Because he comes up with the mole on his face and stuff.
Yeah, he's acquired the mole. He's acquired the beauty mark on his face. And I love the psychiatrist. Vaguely reminds me of we discussed him recently actually on Where Eagles Dare, the guy the bad guy from Night of the Demon. He has that sort of weird creepiness that I can't remember the guy's name in now. That he has that just sort of turned up to 11 a bit more.
Yeah. There's a great bit here where Bill is going to fight Ferguson. And Clarissa's like, no, don't do it. And the judge the judge finishes his orgy, and then he goes upstairs. He puts on his shirt again. He's like, I gotta pull myself together, and he puts on his shirt. Yeah. And I love he goes upstairs and he knocks on the parents' door, and he's like, oh hey, come on you guys, you gotta come see this downstairs. And they're like, okay, we'll be there in a minute. We're just changing. And he's like, really? Into what?
Well, yeah.
There are some really nice little lines and puns that kind of land for me in this movie.
Yeah. And I like the way that when they're all sort of disengaging and they're all sort of, putting themselves together, it doesn't look like it feels that great to put yourself back together, does it? It looks sort of awkward, and when they're in their own sort of skin again, it looks like it takes a long time to get back.
Yeah.
Because when you see that when the dad comes down, his face is all sort of scrunched up and his hair is all mad, and it's sort of like he hasn't quite settled in properly. I really like that.
But I love the line. The judge goes back downstairs and he starts officiating the fight. He starts doing the announcing.
Yes.
And he's like, hailing from Beverly Hills. And he says, with a lineage going back to Julius Caesar and Genghis Khan. So it's kind of like all of the greats of society and rulers throughout history are effectively part of this species and this society. They introduce Ted Ferguson, and then of course he says Bill comes from nowhere, basically, doesn't he?
Yeah, basically it's like Shitsville or something.
That's right. Yeah,
nowhere in particular, from no one in the special sort of thing.
And of course they fight, and for a while, Bill is getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, he's getting probably thrown around and smashed, and it's just not looking good for him.
No, I mean at one point, I think he's about to kind of do Bill in, and it's Clarissa that manages to stop him with she like hits him with the poker, doesn't she? The fire poker.
Yeah.
And then her mum, because he hits Clarissa, her mum then jumps on him and kind of holds him down for a minute.
Yeah, well, she sort of lands on.
She just lands on him.
Topples on him, doesn't she? Basically.
But everyone's laughing. He's getting absolutely wrecked. Bill. He's just got the shit kicked out of him. And he says, I can't remember what he says when he kisses him. What does he say?
Oh, I can't remember.
He says some line. Ferguson says some line. He grabs him and he's like, you're not going to be with Clarissa anymore or whatever. And then he basically starts kissing him, which we've seen earlier. It was kind of like sucking the life out of Blanchard, wasn't it? So I guess
he's basically
trying to do the same here.
Yeah.
And everybody's loving it until Ferguson goes to I guess do what they did to Blanchard, put his fist through him.
Yeah.
But Billy grabs the arm and kind of like the arm goes all smushy. And then it's Billy who punches himself into Blanchard.
Yeah.
And Blanchard's face goes all like a cartoon.
I think he's punching him in the testes. I think.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Because of the way he,
But he puts his hand through him. I mean, he ends up with his fingers coming out of his face.
Yes.
And he basically punches all the way through his body up into his face with his fingers coming out of his skull.
Yep.
And then pulls it all back through and basically pulls him inside out.
Yeah, he turns him inside out.
Which is as ridiculous as it sounds. That's what happens.
Yeah. But there's clearly a limit to their their
well, I guess their ability to morph and change is also a bit of a weakness, where they're somewhat more malleable than a human would be, because presumably they don't have bones, right?
I guess they must be. They must be. Well, you see his spine, so they have bones. I guess they're just soft.
Yeah, maybe they're softer or something. Yeah. But yeah, so everyone's pretty shocked, and his father tries to stop him on the way out, but Bill punches him in the face.
Yep.
And basically leaves. They take Clarissa, and Milo. They all get into the Jeep. And yeah, they head off. Manage to escape. Do we see what happens to her mother?
No,
she's just gone now, right? She just never turns up again.
I feel sorry for her, because I'm sure they'll probably end up killing her, because they just leave her. They just leave her there. It's like, okay, bye.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
The whole mother thing is it's one of the weirdest things in this movie, actually.
It probably is, And then of course we end with the body of Ferguson inside out with maggots all over it and worms on the floor. And the judge just basically turns to the doctor and he's like, well, I guess I can have an opening in Washington next week. And that's like the end of the movie. It's like, okay. And then we get the song, and that is Society. A very strange film. Like you, I didn't think it was as good as I remembered it.
No.
But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching it anyway. The effects have held up, for sure.
Certainly the entire shunt scene.
Oh, God, yeah.
Is amazing. It's so good. And just icky and amazingly well done.
and some of the other shots, I mean, Clarissa being backwards in bed worked quite well. I think the shower scene, because of the frosted glass, worked reasonably well. There's some nice shots.
It's only really the mother-daughter merge.
Yeah, that looks terrible. I think they must have run out of money or something for that.
Yeah, it does feel like that was a sort of almost like a last edition sort of thing.
It was either too ambitious, although even then, it's because the head looks really cheap. I think they ran out of money and they just kind of did what they could at that point.
Yeah, it does. It feels like that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. And
it really is. I really enjoyed rewatching this.
And they actually do a very... I think sometimes the music can get a bit much.
Yeah.
Especially some of the sort of quieter scenes. It's like, okay, we don't need this right now. Maybe, turn that off. And I think they do a very good job of some of the building the tension up. With the actual scenes where Billy is sort of having his nightmares and the sort of these quite slow, long sort of shots of tension building are very actually well done.
Yeah.
So although it's not quite as good as I remember it being, it's still a really fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. Had an absolute blast rewatching it, and I definitely recommend watching it. So if you've never seen it before,
if nothing else, it's an experience movie.
It is.
It's something that you'll probably never see again.
No, they're not going to fucking remake this. And
they were in talks to do sequels. I think there's a comic.
What are you going to do? You've told the story. Like, what else can you really do?
It doesn't need another.
No, really. It's fine.
I mean, I suppose you could have a sort of I don't know, They Live type thing, maybe, that sort of the wider conspiracy of species sort of thing. But it just wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't. So I don't think it would be as fun, and it wouldn't be.
No, I agree.
I don't think you could pull it off to be that again. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think they'd have to try and do. They'd probably try and do it seriously, and it just wouldn't work.
No, I agree.
I think the humor gauge is just right. I think.
I think you're right. Yeah. But in any case, that was Society. We will be back next week with our usual review fare, reviewing new movies and all of that stuff. But until then, stay safe, take care, and we will catch you next time.